thinking about our purpose and doing that self-reflection piece, and then checking in to see if the work that we're doing is fulfilling that purpose. So that's, I suppose, all I can say at this quite early stage of my career.
I think that's fantastic. I like that, because again, if you look at the combination of the speakers here, you've got varying levels of experience. It was good to also see yours and how you could build your purpose from looking at even small things within family. Which also ties into you doing a PhD and trying to find purpose and grow up as much as you can, which is brilliant. I think that will also inspire someone here that is looking at that level to pick up one or two things. But let's take it off to the next one. Wayne.
Okay.
Before we come to the professor now.
So academia is hard. Let's not put any rose-tinted glasses on it. Being an academic, it's not an easy life. And if you're a person of color, it's not any easier. It's probably significantly harder. We saw the statistics which Evelyn put up earlier on, for those of you who are here and those who are online. We saw the statistics. So part of purpose is about understanding justice and understanding that this isn't acceptable. And so for young academics, we need to find the justice within the system and make the, I'm not going to say make the system, we have to make the system work for us, or we have to create our own system. I know that sounds radical, right? But I think sometimes, why are we trying to impose ourselves on a system which isn't currently accepting us, without actually looking on the value of ourselves and saying, what can we contribute? What can we deliver? And a forum like this, I think, is incredibly powerful, because you see the excellence in the room, and being in that room, use it as an opportunity to network, use it as an opportunity to connect, right? If we're not connected, if we divide, we will fall. But if we connect and we enhance those powers or those opportunities that we have, we can create whatever system we want. So for me, what I would say is try and ensure that, especially for young academics at every single level, you are striving for justice, but you are striving to be excellent in your environment. That's what I would say at this moment in time.
That's fantastic. Over to you, Bernadine. Yeah?
So as an undergraduate, King's College London, being taught biochemistry and not seeing myself reflected in the content, in the lecturers teaching us, and so many other things, I just thought, why aren't we there? Are we no better than those that were teaching us? Why wasn't I reflected in the content? Why didn't I feel a sense of belonging? So when the opportunity arose, and as Professor Evelyn said, I reverse mentored Sir Ed Byrne, who was the former principal of King's College London. An opportunity arose for me to work part-time in the EDI Central team at King's College London. Now, this is something that obviously I was passionate about, didn't know much about it before. But the more I began to know more about it and what I could be involved in, I then realized that I can do what I've been called to do. So for those that do not know, I am the founder of the Black Minority and Ethnic Early Career Researcher, How to Stay in Academia Conference, long title. And the idea of that was to increase the number of BME academics, specifically Black, because as we all know, the stats are just awful. And for me, we find that we do, those that have a PhD, then go on to do a postdoc, and we find that we're doing several postdocs, but we're not quite making that transition to become that lecturer. So King's was one of the 8 universities that was awarded a Race Equality Charter Mark. And there are several action plans that had to be delivered on. And one was understanding why we're not making the transition, why are postdoctoral researchers leaving. So I was one of those. I was one of those that was postdocing for a few years, a number of years. And so I knew what the issues were. Being in the diversity and inclusion team, I happened to start increasing my network. I was invited to HERAG. I met people there. So with my idea of what I should be doing and my plan, my vision was easy to act out. I need people to have conversations with, and I did. I invited 10 individuals from various universities to come to King's and let's have the conversations and share my program, what it would look like to get buy-in. So 2017, we had our first pilot conference at King's College London, and the 10 individuals from the various universities, all I asked was to ensure that they invited 10 people to make sure that this conference did happen. There were people there. And I was stunned with what happened. And I'll never forget what Dr. Donald Palmer said after the conference. We were at King's in the Central Hall, talking for ages. And he said, Bernadine, you started a revolution. You can't stop now. And truly, he was absolutely right. 9 years later, well, 8 years later, 9 years next year, we're still going. But what did we want from this? What did we want from this conference? We wanted to empower our people. We wanted to share the importance of having a mentor. I'm going to ask a question now. Show of hands. How many of you got a mentor? How many of you have a mentor? Not many. It should be every single one of you. That's the start. Then well done for you coming here today. We're networking. And make sure you talk to someone you don't know. And look after ourselves. Our well-being matters. And something that I struggled with because it just wasn't working for me, applying for grants. I just stopped applying because I just wasn't getting it, not knowing that there was a technique, or just literally speaking to the grant manager and making sure that you're writing all the right things. 8 years later now, I've seen so many postgrads that have, or postdocs that have transitioned to become lecturers. I've seen people becoming independent. We're seeing now in people going up the ladder in various levels in academia. So lecturers, senior lecturers, associate professors and professors. So my conference is making an impact and I'm happy. That was one of my purposes in this life, to do it in academia. And I will continue helping, supporting in any way I can, from students all the way up to professors.
That's fantastic. Brilliant.
I think Bernadine's downplaying some of the stuff that she's saying, right? Because not only has she done that and empowered so many others, she's led by example. And just recently, I think it's about 3 weeks, is it, Bernadine? 4 weeks? She was made professor herself, right? So, you know, it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to actually enact it and be that lead example. And that's what she's become, a lead example for others to say, you know what, Bernadine did it, and she's showing us the way that we can do it. So lead by example, and that's what she's doing. So kudos.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, Wayne, you read my notes. I don't know how, but that was fantastic. That was brilliant. Again, let's just bring that further down. It's easy to say all these fantastic things, how you go from an early career into mid-career, trying to create the space, relevance, and into leadership. Now, the next question is about deeper purpose. What are the steps? It's easier said to just give it broadly. I think the audience would like to know, what are the key steps? You know, baby steps, bigger steps, at these different levels. Because again, why I love this audience is that there are different people here that at different levels want to pick ideas. So for instance, one of the things I've picked is as an early career, you need to find purpose within and also in your scholarship. You've also talked about the idea of you creating a space, creating a space till or make a space or out of the space. And of course, looking at what Bernadine has done to move into, I think my note is more about taking opportunities, mentorship, networking, and leading at that level. Now, the next question is, how do we do that?
Okay.
The steps. Please.
Can I start?
No problem.
Right?
Steps. Yeah.
Do you want
You
to
go.
Yeah.
I would say, if you don't know this word, learn it. Intentionality. Right? Intentionality. You have to have a clear intention but intention with action. That's what I call intentionality. You have an intention, but you must act upon it. I intend to walk up that stairs at the end of this session. But if I don't act on it, my intention is still there, but I just haven't acted on it. So you have to have intentionality, right? Another thing that I would say that you need to do. How many of you have played the game Tetris? Anyone played Tetris? Some of you have played Tetris, right? Do you know when Tetris was made? Do you know the year that Tetris was designed? It was a bit earlier. Yeah, it was 1979, right? Do you know when it was the first time that somebody actually got to the final stage of Tetris? Do you know what year it was? It was 2000 No, it was 2010. Yeah, so the first person who got to clock Tetris, as it were, was 2010. So it took something like 20, almost 30 years in order to do that. How many people now have clocked Tetris? Hundreds. At the World Championship, right, there was one, sorry, I'm not a Tetris, but there is a point, right? Sorry, right? Everyone on the panel's thinking, what's this guy going? Where's he going? Right, but listen up, right? At the World Championship, one guy clocked Tetris 12 times across the championship. Why was that? I'll tell you why. Because one, there was an example that people were now able to follow. The community had changed, right? Before, everybody was just doing it in silos by themselves, right? But then, when the first person did it, and they were now having online forums, and other people were able to observe what had happened and how they made it to the next level. And then, on top of that, when people started doing their own, they started feeding back and saying, this is how you can do this step better. This is how you can do that step better. So now it was a collective learning environment. So basically, there was a model which was established. There was active participation by the individuals, and then there was effective feedback into the system. So on our academic careers, right? And it's something which, as why I'm saying what Bernadine has done is an example. She's shown us how to get there. So you should be going back and we should be having those conversations. What is it that you did? How is it that you got there, right? Then apply that to your own lives. And you know what? Don't be critical of feedback. If people are feeding back to you, reflect on it and think to yourself, what is it that I need to do differently in order to obtain the outcomes that I want to see? So that would be my blueprint. Sorry about the Tetris.
No,
I don't have much on Tetris. But I think it's really important what you said there, because there was almost a community in the sense of the Tetris, and people were acting by example. But something I'll add to that as well is accountability. So for, let's see, for as long as, let's see, when did I start this? I think just before the pandemic, I started an accountability group. And I found it really, really helpful for me to have a group of people around me who could hold me accountable to my goals. So I think, Wayne, you talked about goals as well, and taking action. So every month what I did is that I'd create my goals. And this is something that I used to do anyway, but I would create my goals, and we did this online. So it was friends and people I'd never met before. I just invited them all to this monthly goal setting workshop. And we'd all create our goals for the month. And then the idea was that we would hold each other accountable at the end of the month by coming back and reviewing those goals. And it was really important whenever we had this goal setting session that we made our goals SMART, so specific, measurable, realistic, etc. But having that accountability meant that towards the end of the month, I'd be constantly thinking, oh gosh, I've got to do this review, and everyone's going to be on the call. So it was really helpful to have that accountability, and I've continued that. And I think that if you have a goal, or you know what your purpose is and you want to get there, it's important to have that community around you. And that could be of your peers, that could be people even outside of the work that you're doing, but someone who can say, well, actually, you said you really wanted to do this particular thing. And I suppose even before you get there, it's important to consider your career timeline. So earlier I spoke about self-reflection. And once you've done that piece of self-reflection, you've understood where you want to go and what you want to do and what you believe in, what your purpose is. I think it's really important to then look at your career timeline and see which points in your career have you ever sort of felt like you were aligning with your purpose. Because I think oftentimes we are working and we sometimes forget why we're there. And we might be there because of the paycheck, because sometimes the paycheck can be good. And we forget our purpose, And I think what I've been quite intentional about now, because I'm loving intentionality, is only working with organizations and on projects that align with my purpose. And I feel quite privileged to be able to do that, but I've made sure I'm able to do that. So now if something does not align with my purpose, my values, it doesn't have the right culture, I do not stick around. And I think that's all part and parcel of knowing yourself, your purpose, and your intentions with your life and your career.
Fantastic, brilliant.
So you asked for practical step by step.
Yes.
Have the conversations. My mother was a deputy head teacher in Nigeria, and she taught us that the teachers are there to help you ask questions. So I call myself a King's babe. So I was born at King's College Hospital. I graduated from King's. I did my first postdoc at King's. I was headhunted to UCL, came back to King's, got married King's Chapel. And all those years of me doing things with King's, I had never seen a principal that was so in tune with students. So intentional. I knew I wanted to teach. So when I was doing my first postdoc, I did complete a teaching qualification. And every year as part of that qualification, we attend a Teachers Away Day. And at that away day was a principal. I told you I'm a woman of faith. I was actually in between jobs. And he was sitting on a panel, and he was listening to students in a way that I have never seen somebody so high up do. The former principal, I would not have even looked at. He just had that thing about him that I just, okay, just you're there, I'm here. But him, when he was leaving, something said to me, and that must have been the Holy Spirit, go and speak to him. And I thought, no, that's not how it works. You've got to make an appointment with the secretary. Who told you all these things in your head? I just had it in my head. No, go and speak to him. Go and speak to him. So I was like, okay, what does my mum say? You should always ask questions. So he was leaving. And then I said to him, excuse me, principal, can I have a word, please? And he said, yeah, sure. And I'm thinking, that's not meant to happen. And then I explained, I was a graduate from King's. I haven't seen an increase in BME female lecturers in science teaching. I talked about my charity I run. And then he looked at me, and it was as though he was a magician. He plucked a card from nowhere and just said, make an appointment to see me. And that's how I started working part-time in a diversity and inclusion team. But I'm that person that will see somebody that has something that I need and go and speak to them. 9 out of 10 times, they will receive you nicely. But, you know, just have the conversations. Just reach out and have the conversation. It's as simple as that. And my goodness, when we did have that meeting, just briefly, when we did have that meeting, he said, Bernadine, so before that, when I did meet him, it was just to have a conversation. So I thought. He asked me what I would like. I said I would like a lectureship. And he said, no, you'd have to go to your dean. Your dean of your school organizes that. But then he said, I can see you're very passionate about diversity and inclusion, because he heard about my charity, which helps Black young students or young people to be better citizens in society by showing them role models. And then after the meeting, he said, follow me. And then I'm thinking, where are we going? And then he went to his deputy's office, and he sat down and I sat down, and he said, this young, intelligent woman approached me, and I'm thinking, who's young? Who's intelligent? And then he just said, use that money over there. And basically that was for me to work part-time, the diversity and inclusion team. It started off as 1 day a week and then turned to 4 days a week. And in the conversations we were having, he did say, Bernadine, this is going to be the making of you. Was he right or not? 101%. That's correct.
Hallelujah.
That's fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, I know we've got audience online. We've got a few audiences online, and we've got some here that I want to ask questions. It's about time for you to prepare your questions, but just give me 1-2 minutes just to put some context into these fantastic points. I'm sure you could see that I'm from Bath, so let me just give my perspective to that. I'm not meant to speak, but I think also what could help, it's a mindset. I think they've mentioned several points. It's a mindset. And what does a mindset mean? Let me put it, my teaching approach is I give examples. I try to break it down. That's what it's for. So Taslim started from FE colleges. FE moved into HE, so transitioned into HE. So in FE, I grew to become an acting principal in a college manager, franchises. You know, I think I'll be pitching into different levels that we are. Franchise programs into HE. So HE started from a teaching university before getting to Bath. I'm sure, you know, so Bath it's a unique situation, because coming to Bath was like, in fact, when somebody told someone that I was in Bath, they said, are you sure Bath? Is it the other one or the main Bath? I said, yes, the main Bath. So getting in, there was a gap. I noticed quickly a gap. I think some of those points about trying to do self-reflection, set goals, all those things. So I'm putting them into perspective. So I got in, culture shock. Where have I been? Oh, look at this. This is how people grow pretty quickly with research papers and all that. So what I did quickly was to, again, coming back to some of the things that Wayne has said around, you know, they look at, you create the solution, or be part of solving the problem, or you create yours. So when I got to Bath, so I noticed where the gaps were, and quickly I started plugging in. Start working with papers, and there's something, again, I need to add, there's something called the law of attraction. Once you start thinking, I don't know, it's like you saying you want to buy a BMW car. You'll notice that once you start getting to the road, you start seeing all the cars look like BMW.
Tell you.
You know, everything.
Exactly how I got my car.
So same concept. So again, once that happened, you know, they just start clicking, and I've got an amazing co-author here, and you know, we just start, all your friends just keep changing and into that. So I'll say, one, environment helps, mindset helps, then problem. So as I go in and I plugged in, you must also have the will to make those moves. And applied. I became a member of Senate. I became a member of council, became a member of court. Bath is predominantly white. In my faculty, I can count the number of Black lecturers. But for me to just come in and push it, it's all about the mindset, also the environment and the ambience and the will to solve problems. And so doing, then the role to become the race equality showed up. Okay, to manage the race equality for the whole university. So again, coming back to some of the things Bernadine is saying around solving problem, if you look at her transition around creating a conference, writing a book, mentoring early careers, it's not you getting there. It's now how do you pull people? How do we see how we can come in together? Because again, it's somebody says there's a joy in winning together. I don't know. And at the same time, those are the people that also watch your back as well at some point. So getting into that and trying to solve, because they can see a transition in efforts, a transition in trying to solve problem. It was just going into becoming the race equality was, and I won't say easy peasy, but it was a straightforward path. Now, why am I saying this? I'm just saying it to anyone. Look inward. Again, I could say my early days, why did I waste time in PFHEA and early HE, teaching? So you could say that, but there were things that I could put together that built my experience to do that. One of the things that I learned in PFHEA is also the ability to solve problems quickly. You could write big reports, you could write ISI reports, you could write all those big things. So what am I saying in essence is please and please find purpose. Look inward, look for where the problems are, and be willing, be dogged to solve them. If you need help, we are all here. This is a community. This is a safe space. Ask questions. And what did you say again, Bernadine? You used the word, my mom said, have a conversation and ask questions. And I'll rest my case on that. Any question? Okay. Any question? Any question quickly? Yes, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Rebecca Onofie, and I'm a lecturer at the University of Kent. And my question is for all of the panelists. And as you were started in your career as an early academic, early researcher, how did you navigate managing multiple passions at once? Did you park some and focus on one or two, or did you have a structure to focus on all different ones at once?
Okay. Fantastic question. Who will go?
Yeah. Very good question, Dr. Rebecca. I did them all. For some strange reason, the first comment anyone will say after meeting me is, "Oh my gosh, you've got so much energy. You've got so much energy." I don't know. I'm just very passionate, and I just make time for everything I want to do, and I just do them all in parallel, or how many whatever levels I'm doing. But yeah, I just do them all. That's me. I don't know how not to. And I do have a work-life balance, believe it or not. I do have a husband that keeps me very grounded, which is brilliant, and a wonderful family that supports me. But I do find time just to do it all. I don't know. I'd love to hear what you guys say.
I love what you said about making time. And I think that's really, really important. And I think I have over the years tried to make time for everything. But I think I've also run myself into the ground before and been burnt out as a result of doing that. And at the moment, I'm doing a full-time PhD. At one point, I was also doing a full-time job. And I also have a charity in Uganda that supports women and girls, and it's 10 years old. So I was trying to do all of that. And then I also have a family. Well, I don't have children myself, but I've got a extended family. So there was a lot going on, and I thought I could juggle it all. And I think from March was when I stepped down from my role. And I think that it's really important sometimes to decide whether or not doing it all is the best for you in terms of your health and your well-being. And I think for me, it's taken a lot for me to look at my health and well-being, because I'm used to just doing it, to say, actually, what is actually serving my health and well-being and what aligns most with my purpose, and then just carrying on with those. So I'm still doing my PhD because I'm really passionate about the topic. I'm exploring the experience of Black women who are victims and survivors of domestic abuse in London and the response to the Metropolitan Police Service. Now that is aligned with my purpose and my passion. And my charity, Women in Leadership, which is based in Uganda, that aligns with my passion as well, because we've launched a gender-based violence project over there. And again, it's very much in line with what I want to do in supporting women. So I would say that I hold on to those things that most aligned with my passion, and anything that's not has to go on the side and on the back burner, and I carry on with those. And at some point I'll probably have to work again, but I'm hoping that I can just carry on with these two for one more year and then find a role, whatever it may be, that then continues to align with what I want to do.
That's fantastic. I think we have more questions. I'll come to you, Wayne. Or do you want to add?
I just wanted to,
okay.
Everyone's different.
Yeah.
Recognize that. Recognize within yourself what your strengths are, where your strengths lies. If it's you, from what Cianne said, it's about how she prioritized what she felt was best for her at that particular time.
Yeah.
Bernadine can do it all. She's got energy, right? And we know she's got energy, right? Well, trust me, she has energy, right? But you have to know who you are and what works for you. Don't take our models and say that you apply that, because that might not be the model for you. So identify what your model is, if you're a prioritizer. But what I'd always say, and both Bernadine and Cianne said this, is surround yourself with people who will support you, right? Because when the times get hard, they're the ones who you will be falling back on, and they're the ones who will be lifting you up. They're the ones who will be carrying you when you can't carry yourself. So make sure that you have that network of people around you who will support you and assist you on your journey.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
I was just wanted to add to that, because I love that.
Yeah.
And I'm a complete fangirl for Michelle Obama. And if you've read any of her books, she talks about her kitchen table. And it's exactly what Wayne was describing, all of those people who are in that support network or who are around your kitchen table. And since reading her book where she talks about that, I feel like I'm more conscious now about who's sitting at my kitchen table, who's there. And if you're not there and you're not supporting, and you're not just supporting, but also to be able to give me feedback, and sometimes critical feedback, if you're not that person, then you don't need to be in my circle.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I said something
Okay,
I'm also a fan of Michelle Obama, and at the end of all my presentations, I always quote her, and she says, "Success is not about how much money you make, but the difference you make in people's lives."
That's right.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's brilliant. In fact, I don't know, it's just so looking so spiritual. Like I guessed what the questions would look like before today. This morning, yesterday night when I was going to bed, the same kind of issue just popped up. Teslim, race, research, a few rejections in the paper, ABS4 paper. And all of a sudden, we had a rejection in the paper, we're rewriting the paper. And all of a sudden, practical steps. I just went to my diary, back page 1, 2, 3, in terms of priorities. What is that number one thing that I must focus on? Family, health, I think papers. No papers. So I went to number 2 and number 3. And so that, what is that number one thing that every day I need to spend quality time just to make sure I tick them? I think you could also apply that to that. What is that second thing that's less priority that you could tick and all that? I think that could help. Brilliant points. Thank you so much. Any more questions, please? Yeah.
I'm Sasha from the University of Derby. So my background is I did secondary education, FE, and then transferred into HE. I've been here in HE now for 2 years. I've just finished my fellowship and done my level 7 apprenticeship. And I'm now at the point like, what do I do next? Some people are suggesting PhD, some people are suggesting get research, and some people are suggesting get yourself grounded in academia in your lecturing approach. And I'm like, now, I've just returned from maternity leave, so I've been back at work for 3 months, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do you suggest?
Wow, that's fantastic, yeah.
Do you have a mentor?
I have a mentor while I've been doing the fellowship, but then
one.
No.
So first of all, get yourself a mentor. Secondly, what are you passionate about? It's not about what other people are doing. What do you want?
I feel for myself, I really
No, you don't
want
have to answer it now. No.
Oh.
I'm just saying. So happy to talk to you afterwards. Happy to mentor you, but just be thinking about what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Is it that PhD? And why do you want that PhD? What will it do for you? Is it that research? Think about what you want to achieve. If you can, you've got, I'm not sure, you just had a child, so your mind's probably all over the place. But if you can, think about where you can see yourself in 5 years. Okay, let's have a chat afterwards.
Fantastic. And any additions to that?
I think
that's
Bernadine
all.
covered everything.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Again, I've done apprenticeships before, so apprenticeships is quite different from a typical level 7 masters. So again, it's work based. So she's got 2 choices. You could either go for, okay, I want to be a key professional in where you've done the apprenticeships on, or you could say, okay, I want to do a PhD and pursue a path. Again, it boils that to what Bernadine is saying. What do you want to see yourself in the next 5 years? Is it money? Is it it's helping people, solving problems, changing the world? What it is? The world is yours. Just decide. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? Should we take this last one and that'll be it, please?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ola Omishade, and I'm a senior lecturer at Cardiff Met. Thank you for sharing all those very insightful. My question is for everyone, and specifically Professor Bernadine. Have you at some point felt that you need to shrink your personality to fit into the environment, the needs? And in fact, you've talked about purpose, to change your purpose. That's one question. And then you get to the point where you're asking, what am I doing? Am I wasting my time? Is it going to get me anywhere? And how did you handle that?
Can I? Thank you. Was she at the Black Female Academics? I don't think so. Oh, yesterday at UCL. That question kind of came up, didn't it? Yeah. I have 10 mentors. 10. Yeah. I've told you all the things I've been doing. I need support. Yeah. As well as me giving back to young people all around the UK, in fact, nationally, internationally even. I need support. Now, all my mentors have believed in me, supported me, provided me opportunities. And in all that, within my mentoring relationship, I'm always Bernadine. And so because I'm accepted by these various mentors, different gender, nationalities, disciplines, I've learned just to be me. And no, I do not change. I remain my authentic self wherever I am. And if you don't like me, I'm not meant to be there. It's as simple as that. So no, I've never had to shrink my personality or anything. I'm always my authentic self. And I will share, for my promotion, the VC asked us all, invited us for an interview, those of us that were being promoted to professor, and we were asked to do a 10-minute presentation. And I delivered mine. And then I talked about being my authentic self. And he asked me, so Bernadine, tell me, what does your authentic self mean? And I say, I can be Bernadine at the University of West London. I can say things that I'm very passionate about, and I'm encouraged to, I'm given permission to, and I'm supported to be my authentic self. So for me personally, I just remain Bernadine. And if I'm not being supported or anything, I just move on. It's as simple as that.
Thank you very much for that. Again, we've got a few. Again, we need to be rounding up here, but we'll just ask, you will give it to, Wayne? You want to?
Depends on what your authentic self looks like. Right? Because your authentic self will look different in different environments. Yeah, and you have to know which environment that you're in. You might say it should be the same, but there will be environments where you'll be accepted by being your authentic self. and others where you will not. But it doesn't mean that you lose the essence of who you are, okay? Because sometimes, unfortunately, and I can say this, right, from personal experience, the message that I had was good. The delivery wasn't accepted, right? So do I want to stay in that environment? I can leave the environment, but I could be leaving behind issues which actually need to be corrected. And with me not being there, they're never going to get corrected. So sometimes you just have to not change who you are, no, but you have to understand how you deliver the message in a way which ensures that your message does get across and not the way that the message is delivered. So I wouldn't say don't be your authentic self, but understand that you can deliver your message in multiple ways, right, and still be authentic.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Cianne, you want to go through?
Yeah, I think I disagree with you a little bit there,
Go
Wayne,
ahead.
but we're all different people. And I guess, I think I was probably brought up in a very similar way to Bernadine in the sense of my mum always told me to ask questions. And that doesn't always go down well in organizations if you ask questions, because I think this is also in HE that you find that everyone's used to doing things in a certain way. And if you move into an organization or institution and you ask questions as to why something is happening in a certain way, people wonder why you're causing trouble. And you're not necessarily causing trouble, you're just asking questions. And that's a big part of me being authentic. My authentic self, Cianne, asks questions. And that's why my first career was in law, because I was always asking questions. So to be my authentic self, I need to be in an environment where I'm able to ask questions, where I'm able to have an opinion. And if I want to be more controversial, I'll be a little bit more controversial. So earlier in this year, I said to you, I stepped down from a position in an organization. I was the CEO of an organization. And in that position, I didn't feel that I was able to ask questions. I didn't feel that I could be my authentic self and I could say what I felt and say what I meant and disagree with certain things. And I can't be in that environment. And that's very much of the reason why I've always done the work that I've done, which is about advocating for women, making sure women had voice. So if I'm anywhere where my voice is not being heard or not being listened to, and particularly as a Black woman, if my voice is not being listened to and the voices of other Black women are not being listened to, I will not be there.
That's fine.
Oh, can you see the passion, Cianne? Oh, dear. So in wrapping up, we need to go now.
Sorry.
In wrapping up, I'll just ask you in half a minute. Just what do you want the audience to go regarding, purpose and deeper purpose and how to build careers? Half a minute.
So in all that, your network is your net worth. Am I allowed to say any more? Ensure you all, every single one of you, have a very active mentor. Somebody that may look like you, someone that may just be an ally. Get yourself a mentor.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Cianne, over to you quickly. The person again.
Very quickly. On the whole, decide on what makes you want to get out of the bed in the morning. Keep that in mind in whatever you do. And if anything is making you feel like you don't want to get out of the bed in the morning, it's time to start thinking about the next step.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Dwayne.
I'm going to just say be intentional. Have intentionality, right? That's intention with actions. Not just have intentions which are alive, living, which you do and act upon. When you have intentionality, when leaders have intentionality, Bernadine has intentionality. Cianne has intentionality. Teslim has intentionality because they have intentions which they act upon. So whatever your intentions are, act upon them. Find ways in which to make them a reality. Be strategic, have your network. I'm going to just add to what Bernadine says in that sense. It's not what you know. I'm going to even add to that. It's not even who you know, but it's who knows you. Who's the person who's going to open those doors for you when you're not in the room? You could say, oh, I know Bernadine, but Bernadine don't know me, right? We've passed but she don't know me. She's not going to open a door for me, is she? So it's who knows you. And you have to be the person who intentionally acts to let people know who you are. That's all I'm going to say.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we give it to the audience, to the panel members, and for the audience as well? Can you clap for yourself for asking fantastic questions? Thank you very much for having us. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Bernadine. Thank you so much. Thank you. That was really brilliant. Yeah, so the next section will be on this, trying to explore what it means, what's the power of a voice, what does it mean to have a voice, what does empowering and supporting others look like. So in this section, we have 3 panelists. The first one is Dr. Gillian Stokes. Thank you, Gillian, once more. Professor Tanimola Liverpool. Okay, Professor Tanimola Liverpool. Then Dr. Victoria Showunmi. This section will be facilitated by Dr. Ogale. Where is Ogale? Ayetoma. I'm not sure Professor Liverpool is around. Yeah, so I think we just work with Cianne Jones, and thank you so much for joining us. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. So, no, he's not here. Which do you want? Because we need it for the audience. Okay.
Me? Can you hear me? No.
Hello.
It's upside down.
Hello.
Let's try it here. Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay.
Hello. Yeah.
That's better.
So hi everyone, and great to have our panelists here.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So without much ado, I'm just going to ask some questions so that we have enough time to cover everything. So, I mean, this session is talking about understanding the power of a voice and empowering and supporting others. One thing that came to mind when I thought about this was I sing. And when you hear singers, you can say, oh, they have a powerful voice and they have a good voice. And you begin to assess all of that. So it could be good, it could be bad. So the question is, how do you define a voice? And, you know, what makes it powerful? Or the other way around, what could make it less powerful and hinder the impact it's supposed to have? So we're all about our lived experiences. So I'm just going to start by asking Dr. Victoria to start, please, Professor.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to say that I'm also Vice Dean for EDI for my faculty. And I wanted to mention that to begin with, because I think that's very important about voice. Because my faculty, I'm at UCL, and my faculty is the Institute of Education. And the Institute of Education has got its own history. And the history is they've not had anybody looking at myself on SMT at all. And the Institute has been #1 in the world for the last 11 years. It is also a place that prides itself on education over the last 125 years. So you can imagine Commonwealth countries and all other countries which went to the Institute and developed their thinking, in quotes, as part of it. And sometimes you're dealing with people who are perhaps still in that mindset that the countries still need to have a colonial understanding, if that makes sense. So you asked me a question about voice, and I think that's the first thing which I've just demonstrated, that you've got to really understand the power of your own voice, and your power of your own voice is fundamental to being able to understand voice, because if you don't use or know how your voice is, that in itself can be problematic. And the last thing I'd say about that is that, and I think that will come up in here, not many people will have the same kind of experience as me. A lot of people will have different experiences, and they might want to compare them to me. My particular voice, I started growing up in Devon and then Somerset. And so that's where my voice came from. On top of that, I was adopted by white German Jewish parents who happened to be very upper class. So my voice, I tried to tone it down a little bit, but it was a very posh voice. So that was also irritating to lots of people, because many people want to imitate a so-called posh voice. And that's why I'm always concerned about authenticity, because it is what it is. And one has to understand that the voice of Blackness is also a different voice of Blackness, but understanding one's identity is really important. So I wanted to start with that in relation to voice, because that's how I'd start about voice. Okay.
I'm going to come in very, very differently. I also work at UCL. Victoria Shimomini was one of the first people I saw on my first day, but at the university actually. And then I didn't see you for 4 years, right? Because I was shifted off into another building. And what was really interesting about that is I was quite shy about using my voice. We have similar upbringings, except different parts of the world, different religions, and my family themselves were not very proud of a Black voice, and kind of taught me to be quiet and to hide. And anyone who knows me knows that is not who I am. Academically, I thought, what is a voice? I study Mikhail Bakhtin for my PhD. I always look at the unsaid. So voice is spoken, but it's also not spoken. We have an inner voice, we have an outer voice. We use different media to portray our voice. We have to create our voice. We have to be heard. We like to be heard. And we'd like to be respected within the space when we use that voice. So it's a tool. It's a tool that's very powerful. I'll go back to one of, this is my 4th career. Again, people who know me will know this. One of which was a backing singer, all of that. So I used to think I sounded like Josephine Baker on a great day, but my kids told me otherwise. So sometimes the voice we hear, the voice we think we're portraying, is not necessarily the voice that other people hear. A little experiment as well is if you put your fingers in your ears and block them and then speak, that's what you sound like to other people. It's very interesting. Try it. Maybe not right this second, but give it a go. It's a little science experiment.
I don't know how you do
But when
it.
we're using this voice
But
in academia
you
specifically as Black academics, our voice has not been predominantly given space. So we need to learn to develop that voice. We need to find a platform for that voice that's very welcoming. So it is a tool. It's a tool. It can be misused. It can be not heard. It cannot be given opportunities. But we need people like Victoria and Bernadine and speaking earlier, and Cianne in the future. And, you know, we need mentors and people to allow us to carry our voice. Our voices need to be heard. So it's a very complex thing, the voice.
Yeah, thank you very much. And just to ask, because you talked about the voice and probably the accent, probably.
Yeah.
How do you feel that, because we are now really talking about voice, as in, you know, there are different ways of defining voice. How do you think that, did that help to progress, or did it hinder you, or how did it affect you? Because these are the realities. And we understand in higher education as well.
Voice is an interesting thing. I mean, when I first came to London, my also voice and name. So my name is Victoria Lane, right? So that in itself, and my voice kind of matched that in some ways, I suppose. And I used to go to some particular things. I wanted to really engage with my own community, which is Black community, and my voice hindered my connection in many ways. But I was very naive and innocent, coming from the country, like, you know, Somerset and Devon. All of that is very different to London. But I used to go to a lot of networks, which were Black networks, and that was very powerful for me and colleagues. But I used to ask a very basic question, which I thought a basic question. I like to ask lots and lots of things. Was why do you worry about your voice? Why don't you just be your authentic self and speak how you want to speak? I don't understand that. And people would say to me, but you don't understand, Victoria. And I said, well, what don't I understand? I speak like this and you speak like that. Why do you need to change? Because at the time, there was lots of people who wanted to go to elocution lessons and learn how to speak in a certain way. And I always used to say, but that in itself takes away your authenticity. You have to be your authentic self. If you miss the T off your word, you miss the T off your word. If you say it in another way, you say it another way. The question which you asked me, I think, is a really important question. Did it open doors to you? Privilege is invisible unless you have it. And so for me, it was, what did I need to do? I was always, what do I need to do to ensure that others get into the house, which is part of a book I written. It's about, I grew up in the house, and how do I now ensure that I open the door and get everybody else in the house to work with me, not be in the house. And that's a metaphor, right? So I'm not being rude to anybody. I'm just saying the house, because I grew up in a big house, and it's always a metaphor for me. And it was about the fact that I know where the poison is. I know everything is. I know how these white people are. So I know how to deal with them. And so let's go in the house together. So it's about a voice of understanding the voice, a really interesting metaphor about voice. And so I was always wanting to ensure that, you know, the generosity of what we do within that is important. So for example, Gillian mentioned my name earlier, that, you know, I was the first person she'd met. Now, I was always the person who would always, with my voice, hi, how you doing?
Welcome. Yeah.
You know, I see you, you see me, but lots of people wouldn't see me because they want to duck and dive, and they think, don't you dare tell me that I'm Black. You know, just no one needs to know I'm Black, even though you're looking like me. And so I would always, hey, Julian, how you doing? Are you just come to the university? Let's talk about it. That's voice. But you have to have confidence with that voice, be able to say, what's your name? I haven't seen you before. What's your name? I haven't seen you before. Whereas a lot of people will hide under that because they think if you are speaking your voice, they will find out that you're Black. And when you find out you're Black, you won't get the smarties that they promised you. And that's really important. Now, I'll say one little thing, because I'm a storyteller. I've learned to be a storyteller. maybe because of the Jewishness, maybe because of this, I don't know. But one of the things is I remember saying to this particular person who'd started at the university, and I said, oh, hi, I've met you before. And I used to chair the race equality committee for the Institute, because the Institute used to be a standalone university before it became part of UCL, which I thought was the best thing ever happened. And I said to her, oh, how are you doing? It'd be nice to say hello to you. And she kind of grumbled. She came from the BBC, right? So I said hello to her, and she said, oh, well, hello. I said, oh, do come and knock on my door and say hello. Yes, yes, yes. Anyway, about 18 months later, she knocked on my door. So I said, oh, how are you doing? And she said, I need to come and apologize to you. I said, why do you need to apologize? What you know, have I done something wrong or anything like that? She said, I was told not to speak to you. That's what I'm going to say, Kay. Lots of people don't talk to me. So I think, okay, you know, you don't need to talk to me. And she said, she didn't say because I was black, but the implications were because I was black. And it was, don't talk to Victoria because she's not the right person to talk to. And she will create, you know, it will be problems for you. So, and I think that's something you haven't spoken about that, but this is a part of voice. So over the last, I'd say 15 years since being at UCL, you know, Institute at UCL, you will hear the voice about Victoria. And if you're new, people will steer you into a different corner and say, even now, don't speak to her because that will hinder your career. These are the words. Whether it's an administrator who says it to a potential professor or a professor, that's what's happening. Okay? I'm okay with that because I just keep doing what I'm doing. I'm very authentic. I keep doing what I'm doing because I know they'll always come knocking on my door afterwards and say, I need your help. Why do you need my help? You don't want to talk to black people. You don't want to talk to black people. How can I help you? But of course I will always help because I'm also high up in the union. I'm at national level. I've been at national level. I've held very high level roles in there. So my voice is very, very authentic. But at the same time, you don't know what you're getting with me. That's scary for a lot of white people because they start talking about working class. And then I say to them, I didn't live in a working class. I didn't work with working class. I didn't grow up in a working class background. And then they get nasty because you know why? Because they want to be paternal to you. They want to say, I helped you.
Yeah, 100%.
Bullshit. You don't need to help me. Do you know what I mean? I don't need your help. Thank you so much.
You do.
I really appreciate the cup of tea and everything else. But I don't need your tea. I drink hot water. But it's about that type of stuff. And so that's why I do stand-up comedy. Because of that. And it's about voice. Because then you can play with them. You know when you play with people? Yes. Let's have a cup of tea together. Let's sit down and let's just talk about the weather. Oh, you do have some nice shoes on. Oh, yeah, really, really nice. Exactly. But I'm being serious. That's what we're talking about in academia. But you need to understand that. You really need to understand that. And that's about voice. And it's about the fact you need to know your voice. So when I come towards you and you say, oh, hello, da, 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 and you run away because you think that that person over there is watching you talk to me, well, that's your fault. That's your nonsense, not mine. That's not mine. So it's, yeah, the voice is very, very important. I don't know whether I answered the question.
I think you've raised a lot of more questions.
Yeah, there's a lot more questions.
Yeah, there's me and her, and we both can do comedy together. So you know what, I mean, you know, I don't know what you want, but yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I'll probably pick on some of the things you said there in the next, but I just want to hear from you.
Yeah, so this is actually working quite well because I'm going to go quite academic again with boys.
You said I'm not academic?
So, no. You're doing the storytelling. I'll do academia, right?
How many books have I got?
25. 25, I think. So Baker in 1999 wrote about what is voice, right? So it talks about issues of identity, which Victoria said, issues of representation. And he did this in the context of looking how people wrote critically in reviews, okay? The problem that we've got with voice now is there is something called AI. Okay, AI is moving faster than humans. 10 years ago, it was hardly known. Today, it can mimic you, it can represent you, it can look like you, it can sound like you. The other issue with AI is it predicts what you're going to say, okay? And what happens with AI in this instance is if your voice is not the right voice of the people who originally coded this, who were white, who were Ivy League or Russell Group, who were in their 40s and 50s, way back, it's embedded in the computer system. So as Black academics, especially those who don't speak with an English accent, I mean, trust me, if I go Brummie with my teams, it completely comes up with some crazy, crazy stuff. And if I've been hanging out in Birmingham, it came up with a couple of rude words. And I was like, I didn't say that. And then I see it. I'm from Worcestershire.
No, I didn't know that.
You didn't know. I didn't know you from Devon. And yeah, so the power of voice can be taken away and is promptly soon to be taken away if we don't have more Black academics working in AI, recoding. How many people have disappeared on Teams when you're in a Teams call because the computer can't see you? So there are lots of other issues around voice that are becoming prevalent and you need to be mindful of. Voice is something that humans developed. The mushroom theory is one, that humans ate magic mushrooms all those 40,000, 100,000 years ago. And they couldn't express what they saw, so started to make sounds that became spoken word. So historically, voice has become very important because it's been used to paint pictures, it's been used to tell stories, it's been used to make us laugh, to make us cry, through poetry, and through academia, it's for us to tell stories, sociological stories, important scientific findings, whatever they may be. Our identity within that, and I really love the way that you speak, Victoria. I mean, not only speak, your voice is heard. I heard you, I saw you, and I didn't run away. So the reality is, we are embedded within a society which is endemically, historically racist. It is going to take another century or two, maybe, for it to be eradicated. Who knows? Histories are histories. They're not going to go away tomorrow. We need allyship to give us this power and the spaces for this voice. But I don't need help. Like you said, I don't want your cup of tea. I don't need to be, I am very powerful. And I think the inner voice is what gives us power. I'm going to come on and talk about that a little bit later. There's a few books that are really, encouraging for voice. Fear holds us back. Politics holds us back. Names hold us back, as Victoria also pointed out. There are a number of studies looking at the names of people who have published. And if your name does not look from the global north, I hate that expression, but unfortunately it's become a thing, you're less likely to be published. So I work as an editor on ethnic and racial studies, which is Dr. John Solomus, which I think you know. He writes quite a lot about race. But one of the things that he's doing is providing a platform, especially for early career researchers. I'm probably going ahead of the game here. But this is about giving space for voice. So in a world which is kind of troubled at the moment, we can't deny what's going on. There's a lot of shifting to the right. There's a lot of extremist views. People are less frightened about shouting down about migration or spitting on people in the street, as has happened to me in London on a number of occasions, especially when we lost the football, eh? So I'm not frightened to talk about that, but we need spaces for us to be taken seriously as academics. And that's why I act as an editor. I haven't got time to do it, but I do it. We find time, right? Who said that? Bernadine, you make the time. Yeah, thank you.
Right, thank you. There's so much in there, but I'm just going to try and pick on some of the things you've said and raising this question. So what mechanisms or approaches can Black academics use to create their own voice in their institutions, particularly when you've talked around things about identity, and sometimes that can be an identity crisis going on in your mind because of your name, things you've mentioned, and fear and office politics, and knowing how can I have this voice, particularly when you have less of our race within either your faculty, your department, and the institution as a whole. So what kind of approaches can we use? Again, we're talking about voice such that we make that impact for progression and not the reverse.
Okay. I think I mean, this all builds on from the first panel as well, but it starts with you've come into the academy for a reason. Whatever the reason is, you've come into the academy. So if I talk about voice, my coming into the academy was to do with women. My undergrad, my master's, my doctorate was all about women. And particularly, I wanted to disrupt white women, right? That's everything I've done is to disrupt the whiteness of what's going on with gender, because I'm interested in them understanding that I also belong here. Now, that's been very painful. So when I look at the mechanisms, first of all, I needed to understand that what is it I'm actually here for in the first place? It is because I'm interested in the passion around gender. Now there is gender, and when I was at Cambridge. So when I was at Cambridge, there was I was there for, I headed up the quality for the whole of the university, because I was thinking, did I want to go into that space? And there was a women's forum, which had been around for 25 years. Very high profile. I chaired it. They'd never had a Black woman chair it. They kind of ummed and ahed and thought about, listen, I am a woman. I am going to chair this. And it was good for them and good for me that we did that. So that comes back to when you walk through the door, you decide what you want to do. But it's about the fact of the mechanism is I'm interested in gender, and gender is what I'm going to be working with. Now I need to find out within the university, there were gender forums. Now with the gender forum, who's looking like me in the gender forum is all white women. So for example, one of the things, there was a provost, our provost is not the one there now, but the one before, was Michael Arthur. I liked him a lot when he first arrived and everything else. And he was very passionate about doing work for women. And his aim was to create 50 female professors over the period of time and to put them in particular positions. So he we were talking one stage, and it was at the time also, where is my professor Black? Why is he white? And so that was all coming out of UCL. So I went and I said to him, let's meet. He said, let's meet. So he said, come and see me at 8:30 in the morning. That's the provost. I'm not scared of anybody. So I knocked on his door at 8:30 in the morning. I used to work in private sector as well. So to me, it's just a client, just another client. So knocked on his door, and he started talking about this and that. And I said, okay, is it, Victoria, I'm doing all this stuff around women and everything else. So I said, yeah, it sounds really good. But what are you doing for Black women? He said, what do you mean? I said, you said you're doing stuff for women. But I said, what about Black women? He said, I haven't thought about that. I said, well, if we think about intersection or intersectionality, he said, I've never heard of that word. I said, you've heard of it now. So let's have a conversation about intersectionality, and let's do that. So what's that about mechanism? It's similar to what Bernadette was saying in a slightly different way. That through your academic stuff which you're doing, where's the gap within the university, and how do you open that door? You open that door yourself. Now I know that lots of people can't open the door themselves. Not everybody's got that. I understand that. My daughters tell me all the time. They're not all like you, Mum. I understand that. But it's about that. So, the question, what are the mechanisms and approaches? The approach is to is to work with certain ways. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's not subtle, depending how you want to do it. But it's about how you're seeing what's actually going on within the space. Being on places like, for example, academic board. I'm on academic board. I've been in lots and lots of different committees. And it's committees, they all know what I'm going to talk about when I go on the committees. Some people find it very irritating because I'm asking them about what you do in Black women. Well, it's not all about, what about LGBTQ+? Okay, let's go with LGBT+. What's going on with Black LGBTQ+? And then it's, yeah, but what about disability? Okay, do you know about any experiences of Black people in disability in the university? Do you know we haven't done that? No, you haven't. What about the menopause? Yeah, well, we've been talking about the menopause for years, but you haven't actually listened to what Black women are saying about the menopause. So you see what I mean? So I'm always going to put the Black in it. And they get very upset about that. So I think it's about the voice is understanding your voice. I understand that I'm a feminist. I understand, I have no apologies that I don't research men. I don't dislike men, I just don't research them. So it's important to understand that. So understanding that gender and class and race is the order I look at. Gender first, I want you to accept me as a woman. So I think that answers the question around that, because the institution needs to know that Victoria is going to talk about women. And she's also going to be talking about girls. And on top of that, she's particularly interested in Black girls and Black women with no apology. If I start to think, and also I think about leadership, but that's part of the same thing. If I then start talking about, for example, BMWs, because somebody mentioned it earlier, they think I've lost my mind because I haven't gone down that road. I'm actually talking about girls. And so the committees, which I'm involved with, top level ones around the table, I will always find an opportunity to think about the data and what's happening with Black women. And I'll say the last thing about that. So I was on one around promotion across the whole university. They were all talking about the success of women and how women are moving up and everything else. I'm looking at their stony faced and they finished talking their crap. And is this being recorded?
Yes.
Oh God, where's it going? I'm going to say, where's it going? I'm going to say, where's it going? I just, I don't want to,
Censor it, don't worry.
Oh, I was going to say, Jesus. Anyway, I don't really care. It's fine. They know I talk like that. But anyway, so they're telling us, and this is about voice. It's about taking your time but listening. I'm listening with an academic ear about the statistics around women and gender pay, whether it's gender pay gap or whether it's promotions. We've done so well with promotions. All these women have been promotions. So I'm sitting there with a straight face, and I'm saying, okay, that sounds really good. We've got all these. How many Black women have been promoted? Oh, well, BAME, I'm not interested in that crap neither. I want to know how many Black women have been promoted. Please tell me. Oh, well, Victoria, that's a difficult question. I know it's very difficult. Was it one or two?
What?
One, no, I'm just, that's what I say to them. Was it one or two?
Yeah. And normally the answer is zero.
Yeah. We don't have it's too small data.
Yeah, we were right at the bottom,
UCL. Yeah. And the gender pay gap, that's another discussion. But in the gender pay gap, because I'm involved with the European one, it was Black women were at the bottom of the gender of the pay gap. But we don't want to talk about that neither. So it's about the voice. It's about the voice. About the voice. Yeah.
So thank you.
Is that helpful?
Yeah. Was that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you follow that? Right.
Do the next question.
So, no, Evelyn earlier from the university here, Bristol, she showed some numbers on the screen which were shocking from her perspective. But I said, you look at UCLs. I don't think we even made it onto a couple of the charts when UAL did a list. I'm talking about across all Black academics now. I'm not talking women. I'm going to talk everyone. And I think one of the issues as well, Stephanie Evans' husband, Kelvin,
yes.
Yeah, Kelvin. He's looking at American pipelining. So I think what I'm trying to say here is that we bring not only the issue of colour, but it's also the issue of pipelining and opportunity. And I was really pleased to see that Bristol are going out and they're engaging in STEM actively with the communities. And it is this outreach that is going to sort of ensure this next generation of Black voices in academia, right? But not everyone has developed their academic voice, and it's actually quite a scary journey. It takes a lot of time for a lot of people, especially if you don't come from an environment that has, you know, is generally academic. There's been a couple of recent studies about that, looking at how people who have become professors come from a historical family of professors. You know, professor is in the family, or they're academics of some kind, researchers or doctors. And there is a real connection, especially in sociology, which I do sociology now, but I did train to be a doctor. As I say, I have been a backing singer, and before that I worked in advertising, and all of these things have helped me develop my voice. So when I worked in advertising, you had to speak up, and believe me, I was the only person who was of African heritage for about 8 years in my advertising agency. It's the reason I left. The amount of racism I suffered, I was quite old. So way back then, it was okay to be openly racist and make a joke about my figure or my lips or my hair, or, you know. In fact, I remember the first day I started, the first week, it wasn't actually the first day, slight exaggeration. I worked for a company called Bates Stall and Advertising, which used to do at the time Cadbury and St. Ivel and, you know, a few other things. Coca-Cola, terrible. They had a man stripping off in front of a coffee machine, as I recall, at one point. But anyway, I remember the first day I started, someone came up to me and said, "Hey, you know this place is called Babe Stall, and don't you?" And I said, "What?" He said, "Well, look around." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay. Now you've made me feel really different." Okay, because when I looked around, every woman there was blonde, female, and tall and skinny. I wasn't. And then he turned around to me, and there's no word of a lie, and he said, "Don't worry, you were too short for the camera to catch you on the way in." And that was the sort of toxic environment that I was working at. I was also made to apologize for using my voice against the head. His name was Philip France. Philip France, if you're still alive and watching, I hope you are. So Philip France was the chief executive of London Weekend Television, which no longer exists. And he made an advancement towards me at, which was one of the biggest parties in the media industry. And they joked and said, if they dropped a bomb today, TV would be over tomorrow, because everyone was in that room. And I was, you know, a little nobody then. I was a young, kind of naive ad exec researcher at the time. And he made a sexual advancement to me and placed his hand in an inappropriate part of my body, to which I turned around and said, "If you do that again, I will slap you." And he made some comment back. I thought this had disappeared. And then about 2 weeks later, I get a letter of complaint. And this is about voice and power within that voice. They wanted me to write an apology to Philip France. Again, hope you're watching. And I refused to do this. And that was me withholding my voice, right? So it's not just about the power of when you use your voice. It's also powerful to not use your voice. So I was not going to put my name to a letter and say, "Dear Philip France, you, thank you very much for touching me on the and just I hope you, right?" So I wasn't going to do that, because the power of saying nothing sometimes is more powerful. And again, this goes back to Mikhail Bakhtin, because it's this dialogism. What am I saying to you? What are you saying back? But what are you not saying? Okay. And Victoria has also given a great example of dialogism, because it's not the same as dialogue, right? This is about being in a space where somebody's actions tell you that they're thinking something else, by avoidance, by, he talks about intentionality. There's Wayne up there. That intentionality, but negative intentionality, right? So you have an opportunity as Black academics to carry people through. And anybody who knows me or saw me, I think the last conference or the conference before, talking about voice. Actually, it wasn't this conference. I just remember doing so many. But we all have the power to give people a stage, a platform. And we can do this through mentoring. We can do this through coaching. One of the things I would say to you, as I said, I always thought I sounded like Josephine Baker, Nina Simone, but apparently I don't. But I did have a voice coach. And when you're a professional singer, you have a coach. The coach helps you develop your voice. In academia, you also need a coach. Alongside mentoring and opening doors and giving opportunities, you need someone to help you empower yourself so that you become self-reliant. So the internal voice then becomes something that you hear, you filter, you know when to speak, when it's powerful, and when not to speak, when to hold back. I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you so much, because that leads into something else I wanted to add. You were talking about the coaching, the mentoring. Having gone through some of the things you've discussed, knowing that many of us actually go through that at different stages, how do we create this community to support ourselves, to progress, to advance with all the many things going on? You know, competition for grants, funding, paper writing, you know, and all this type of things. How can we support ourselves? Because some of the things you've gone through, these are what causes the mental issues, mental health issues, well-being issues, but they get covered up. As somebody once said, self-care becomes the very last thing and pushed under the corner, but you're going to face it later. So how do we support ourselves to, you know, navigate this kind of challenging circumstances we may find ourselves in?
I've got 2 dogs.
2 dogs.
I've got 1.
Dogs.
Oh, dogs.
I have dogs.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got 2 dogs. I live by the forest. I spin, I do circuit, and I run.
And write 25 books.
So that to me is my self-care, living by the forest. I've never lived in central London. I don't think I'd survive in central London because I'm just not a Londoner. Living by the forest gives me that greenness. Having one of my dogs died recently, but I've got 1 dog left and I'll get another one. Having dogs is fantastic. So that's that. Being authentic is really, really important. I was talking about that yesterday because one of my daughters, I said to somebody yesterday at the conference, said about my hair. My hair's a mess. And she said, "Are you going to go out looking like that?" I said, "Yeah, I am." Do I care? Do I care? No. And so she said, "But why are you looking like that?" I said, "Why wouldn't I look like that?" You know. So I think that's a bit of fun. Comedy is really good for me. It makes you laugh. If you listen to some of the stuff I've gone through, you would not get out of bed. Having the voice to be able to, I mean, I remember being in, for example, if you don't mind me saying, about Gillian's Viva. And there was 2 people there which were full of shit. And I didn't know Gillian that well. And I was chairing the Viva. And they were coming up with all this stuff. And I said, "I think she needs a break. You know, I think you need to give her a break. Let her have some time to just think through things." And they looked at me and said, "Oh, yeah, yes. We were going to." He wasn't going to say anything. Yeah. You weren't going to give her that break.
It was after about 3 hours.
It was about 3 hours of, yeah.
It was
come on.
tough.
It was tough. So that's another thing. And another thing which I'd just say is that a lot of my support comes outside the academy. Lots of people outside the academy is really good. And internationally, I can pick up the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning. I know I'm going to be able to talk to somebody. I don't sleep much. And so I'll talk to friends which are American, Canadian, or whatever. And we'll be talking because it's still 8 o'clock in the evening for them. So that's that. Church is really good for me. Very spiritual within church. I'm not a fanatic, which is really important, but I am involved with the church. So that's another point. But also, when I look at the community, the work I do is around community. I also, being at the being at UCL in many ways never really understood that it's part of Camden, which is part of London. They saw themselves as it was a box on its own.
Mm.
So I brought people in. So Society of Black Lawyers got involved with UCL because of the fact they needed a space for their meetings on a Friday once a month. So yeah, come in here, use my name, it's okay. So they'd come in and have their conferences there. 100 black men, they needed somewhere. They come in here. So they came in as well. All people like that. So, you know, communities which need a space, which are professional and need a space. That's another way. I did something just recently. They need to know about honorary. They want people to put names forward for honorary doctorates for this particular, you know, for the university, and with our faculty. So I named some names because I did a big piece of research for Give Black, which was looking at philanthropists, black philanthropists within the UK. They had to have at least over 2 million in their bank account. So I was fortunate enough to interview all of them. And of course, I could have had my 10 nights thinking, oh, any nice people there? As a single mum, do you know what I mean? But I didn't. But I mentioned a couple of them, which could be honorary. They came. One of the people came back to me, not the honorary, and they said, "Oh, Victoria, how do you think they'd help the faculty? These people are multimillionaires. Multimillionaires. They're black. Why would you not choose one of them as an honorary? They're not just multimillionaires. They're also doing a lot of stuff in the community. So you get it from all different things. Also what you write. When I write, people pick up the phone from miles away and they link to what you've written because of how you write. Because I was taught clear, concise English only. Yeah. I'm not sure whether I answered the question, but I hope to answer it in a certain way.
I think it's all contributed.
You've got two complex people sitting on this, and you're trying to control us, but we listen.
Okay, just your final response to that. That's a roundup.
Right. Okay. So
Sorry,
self-care is huge. I'm really bad at it. I have to confess. You have to be honest and authentic. And my authentic self is I drive myself into the ground a lot of the time.
She does.
And a lot of us don't see what's going on the inside with people, you know. When you interview people, you know, as a sociologist, if I go out and interview people, you know, one of the arguments between quantitative and qualitative research is, well, it's never consistent because you don't know what the person's going to say from 1 minute to the next. That's right. But that captures that one moment, that one space, that one time. But you also have to understand that, you know, someone may have gone through the tragedy, losing a dog, having a racist encounter, you know, being ill, struggling with their mental health. And when you're interviewing them, you know, you have to do this. As an academic, I'm really aware of that. Personally, I'm not very good at it. So I have to force myself to do things. So I got a dog, which I walk every day. And I've got the same headphones as you as well. We were talking about that yesterday. I have these wonderful bone conducting headphones, which are amazing. So I also live near a park and I allow that time and that space. What I do is I work with, you know, for others in that way, is that I realized I needed a space to write. Because a lot of people don't have that space. They don't have an office at home, maybe, or it's a busy family. They, you know, they're not given time at work, or they're overworking, which is often a big thing with Black academics. We always feel that we've got to do that bit more, you know, that bit more than everyone else. It's exhausting. It's exhausting trying to find your academic voice, being given space to use your academic voice. So I decided to apply. I only found out about it very, very late, the night in the evening, and it was due midnight for an application from UCL, because we're in very different departments, by the way. You're in the Institute of Education, on the Social Research Institute, and they operate very differently. I think you have a harder job there. Yeah, so I applied for some funding to give Black women space to write. And I was thinking, what can I call this? What can I call this? And I thought, right, okay. I'm going to go African and Caribbean heritage women authors. I mean, aqua, that's quite a nice. Water, that's what it sounds like, water. And then when I looked it up, it actually means being left behind in Yoruba, right? So, and other languages have a slightly different meaning for it. And there's a river in Uganda, which runs the Aqua River. I thought it's serendipitous, I'm going to use this. Anyway, I've got this. So I provide space, and other people need to do this, find time and space and give space to academics, especially early career academics. Again, I know we're going to talk about that, to write, support them in their writing. There's a new journal that's come out, and I knew I'd forget the name when I was up here, and I have forgotten the name, but I will share it with you through Society of Black Academics, which is changing the peer review approach to publication. So when you write a paper, you're given a writing mentor. So they will help you write your article. There is no peer review because the person who is doing it is a recognized academic. They just help you do this. And I think it's a really ingenious way of overriding this space and taking the pressure off writing. Because one of the biggest elements about being an academic is dealing with pressure. And the pressure comes from you from every direction. I'm not just talking about Black academics, I'm talking about academics full stop. Once you make that journey, I think I said it yesterday, you're never going to be rich, but you'll be enriched, right?
You can be rich.
Well, I'd like to be, but no, one day.
I'll tell you how.
Okay, talk afterwards. All right, you might be rich, but it isn't guaranteed, but you are definitely going to be enriched, okay? So I try to look after myself. I write sociological fiction. That's another great way that academics can share their stories as well, by the way. You don't always have to, in fact, the power of storytelling, and you're a great storyteller, the power of storytelling is to make it, people feel something, pathos, yeah? So as soon as you portray this level of pathos, and in fact, Socratean approach, but you know, writing logically, writing coldly, writing with logos, and I can't remember what the other one is. Logos, pathos. Can anyone fill it in? Socrates? No? Well, anyway, those two are the most important for now. But writing so that you connect is really, truly important, right? So that is another way, you know, of sharing and taking the pressure off. So my way is supporting others without question when they come to me. I never say no. I only supervise Black academics at PhD level. I've made that very clear. And yeah, I know I'm bad at it and I should do more of it.
That's amazing. Thank you very much.
I'd like to say something else. Yeah.
You want to say something else?
I know it's only a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
I would like to say this because I think it's really important and it doesn't actually get mentioned in many spaces. Many Black women which are within academy, whether they are professional services, whichever you call people within the university, or whether it's academics within the university. So when I'm saying professional service, it could be library, accounts, and all those particular people. We don't know what's happening outside. And so one of the things is, so for example, I'm a single mum, all right? And we don't talk about that in the academy at all. We don't talk about domestic violence. I remember I was going through severe domestic violence within, as an academic. No one knew. I used to do my books, I used to do my work, I used to just continue, right? No one knows what you're doing. I remember my daughter had a really bad situation with illness and you just carry on. And I think that in itself is something which I've written in a chapter called Suffering in Silence, is something we need to also explore because it's about voice and how you swallow what you're doing and you help this person and that person and that person. And then when you sit in that lonely spot in your office, I do have an office, and it's 9 o'clock at night, I do stay in the office late, And you think, okay, so I've just gone through all of that. And then somebody knocks on your door and they're going through it. So you're able to talk through a lot of stuff. And I think the last thing I'd say is I've got a colleague who I've really kind of, I have a coach. I like coaches. I don't like mentors. So I've always had a coach. And I'll always, because coaches are short, quick and done. I don't want somebody which I need to talk to for too long. So it's just short, done, and I know what I'm doing with a coach. All right. So that's my preference. And I also coach. But the last thing I wanted to say, I've coached a professional services person, which is Teresa. And Teresa used to come in my office and she used to be shouting and screaming about whatever. And I'd look over my glasses and I say to her, okay, you're done now. Yeah. This is how we're going to do this. We're not going to go with your machete and you're going to chop up everybody or whatever she used to say. What we're going to do, we're going to take it easy. We're going to take 1 step, 2 step, and we'll go through that. And you can see how she's progressed all through the stuff. She's got a lot of, I've got not very much emotion. So it's working with our emotions as well, if you haven't got a lot. So I just wanted to say that because it is important to understand within the facade, what's going on within that facade.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Can we just appreciate them now? Yeah. And yes, so 2 minutes. Any questions, please? Oh my gosh.
God, I've got so much here I was going to say, and I've not said it yet.
I've got a young lady there with curly hair.
Yeah.
Hi.
Oh, it's on.
Yes.
So hi, I am Sophia Robinson. I am a clinical lecturer at University of Plymouth. But far more importantly, I have a podcast called Writing Black Joy, and I really love that. So that's what my question is about. You said you write fiction, and I know that Victoria said she does stand up. How does using your voice in that way, how does that contribute towards your life and also within academia?
Shall I go? Okay, because one of the things I've got written down here is how to use your other skills. Being creative in the way that you approach your work. Stand-up comedy, actually, I'm going to say it from this perspective. My daughter, my oldest daughter, is studying to be an actress, right? And she's found it really difficult. It wasn't going to be as easy as, hey, welcome to Hollywood or whatever. You know, she's got to go through all of that and develop her voice, okay? And she says, Mum, whenever you do acting, you always sound like you're acting, like that's how an actor should sound, right? So authenticity is key for this. But I think using poetry, I've written poetry, is really, really impactful, and we should be encouraged to step outside the safety of our little boxes and do things in a different way. We were talking about storytelling and how you get people to respond to research. And I'm just saying to people, you know, you need to be creative. So podcasts like yours, for example, really, really important. The issue is it's finding them. So we need sort of like a central place where a central resource that we can all access. I know Tracy Evans has got a resource of academic literature, but we need resources for this, ways to be more different. I don't think I quite answered the question, but I think I said I want what I needed to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's actually I remember they knocked on my door and they wanted to have a room, and I can't remember her name, but she was a leading person for Black podcasts. And she brought in to Logan Hall, which is one of our biggest rooms, 2,000 Black podcasters from all around the world. And so she is a key person around all of that. Stand up for me, I use that in my teaching. Students do have some fun. I use it just have fun, just enjoy yourself. It's very scary, stand up, but it takes us over the shyness.
Yes. Can I also just have one quick thing?
Run out of
Oh,
time,
no,
so we need
okay.
to move on to
Okay.
so thank you very much. Please
I'll talk to you
feel free
outside,
to
thank you.
meet with them later, during the networking time. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before launch, we're going to launch the report where we explore the experience of Black early career academics. So we have Baker online, who should be joining online. Then I have Josh here. This section will be moderated by Bola. Baker,
Yes, I'm here.
can you hear me?
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
It's going to have to come through the speakers on here. There was an issue with having them both at the same time, but I think they might have found a workaround. No.
No. Okay. She's online. Oh, it's like
I'm here. I am here.
Oh, good job.
You can hear us then? That's great.
Yeah.
Pardon? The audience, right? You'll be able to see Josh when he sat down. Can you see Josh?
I can see Josh, yes.
Sorry, all that. Yeah. You won't be able to see the audience. Is that okay?
Sorry, there was interference there, but I didn't catch that.
Yeah, you'll just be able to see Josh and our
Bola,
chair.
that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, but not the audience, unfortunately. Sorry, we can't do that as well.
That's fine.
Okay.
No, understandable.
Right, but we can hear you fine in the room, so that's perfect.
Excellent.
Thank you.
You can start. So
The mic is not on.
it's off. Yeah. It's off.
Hello, everyone. So this is exciting for me. SBA has been busy since the last conference, and we've been working on some report, probably you must have seen online, and that is the report we wrote on unblocking the pipeline. And this is just one of the series of work we are working on the reports we are working on. So this is unblocking the pipeline, supporting the retention, progression, and promotion of Black early career academics. So we work with Gutenberg Sanderson and PFHEA. Becca is from Gutenberg by Sanderson, she's online, and Josh is here. So we'll be here to launch the report so you know what we've done so far. The VC shared some numbers, some data this morning, and it was shocking. We all agree. So we had this report, and it was shocking as well. So I will leave Josh. You've got some things to share with us, but Becca first.
That's right.
Then Josh will go with the data. So Becca.
Great. Thanks, Bola. And thanks, everyone, for having us here today. And I'll just introduce the report a little bit and some of our findings and some of our recommendations. And Josh will take us through some of the data before we open it up to questions, which is actually where I think is going to be the more interesting part of this. And as much as I really want to sort of talk about the report and wanted this report to be a positive impact on the sector, I do have to confess that it does start with a problem. And that problem is, of course, that there is a lack of Black academics in the UK higher education sector. And I really just wanted to kind of get this out of the way because I find that so many discussions around diversity, equity, inclusion, they focus on the problem, and I really want to focus on the solution. For those of you who don't know me, I am a partner in an executive search firm. So my job is to find candidates for senior roles in universities and support the university through a recruitment process, so support the candidate and the university through a recruitment process. And in search for senior executive roles within universities, I often hear about the leaky pipeline of academics, of diverse talent within the higher education sector. And I confess that it actually really frustrates me, and that's sort of the impetus behind the name of this report, is that the pipeline is not leaky, it's blocked. And the purpose of this report was really to understand how and why that pipeline of Black talent is blocked, and what universities can and should be doing to rectify it. So the issue, I think, with conversations around diversity is that they often stumble at the first hurdle. They either focus on the problem, i.e. there are not enough Black academics in UKHE, or they focus on the scale of the problem. And then that leads to discussions around things like attainment gaps, population sizes, challenges of getting a university to change at all, cost of change, those things. But the purpose of this report and the others that will be in the series, as Bola mentioned, is to understand what universities are currently doing to support the progression of Black academics and to gauge the efficacy of those initiatives. And the intention is to take best practices and make recommendations for simple, cost-effective initiatives that universities can undertake to improve the retention and progression of Black academics. Of course, there's not one problem facing Black academics in the academic life cycle. The challenges are multifaceted, they're complex, and will shift over time. So as such, we've decided to split this report into basically 3 installments. Each will focus on a distinct career stage of academia. So this first installment, which hopefully you've had the chance to read, and if not, please do, we'd love your thoughts. But this focuses on early stage or early career academics. So that late stage PhD, early career researchers, teaching fellows, lecturers, those who want to pursue a career in academia. The second report, which will be launched in October, will focus on the transition from senior lecturer or reader to professor. And the final installment will look at the move into academic leadership, likely to be sort of head of school role to Vice-Chancellor, that sort of academic administration, academic leadership. And although I said that we didn't want to focus on the problem, we did need to look at it a little bit in terms of the report. And perhaps I think our approach is maybe a little bit different than some of the other reports that focus on this question. And we really wanted to understand it from 2 perspectives. What are the challenges that Black early career academics face? And so to answer that, we sent out a survey through the SBA, our colleagues at SBA, and through our social media presences, to ask early career academics to answer that question, to really understand their experience. And at the same time, we held semi-structured interviews with universities. So we sent out, invites to over 50 universities. About 25 of them responded, and we held sort of 24 interviews, semi-structured interviews with universities to understand what they thought the main challenges that Black early career academics face. The first thing that struck me is the level of disconnect, I think, in terms of those challenges. And Josh will focus on this in a little more detail, but the survey really highlighted to us that the ECAs themselves feel that unconscious bias, lack of community, and low clarity around progression were identified as the main challenges. What was interesting to me was that emphasis around community. And that's something that I think we'd be keen to explore further in later reports. But universities tended to highlight the lack of Black senior academics and felt that acted as a barrier, as there were no role models for ECAs to aspire to. While survey participants noted that they felt a lack of community, not a single person in that that survey noted or specifically noted that was due to a lack of role models. Indeed, several participants noted the opposite, that actually they were bullied or held back by more senior Black colleagues. And that's an area that I think warrants further explanation to understand what our participants meant by a community of people like me. But I'd like to focus on 2 other findings of the survey as well in the interviews. And this is the issue around hypervisibility and implicit support. A consistent theme that emerged that emerged through our survey and through our interviews was the heavy reliance on Black academics and early career academics to take on additional, unrecognized, unremunerated labor in the higher education sector. That includes things like pastoral care for students, sitting on interview panels, representing the university externally or in promotional materials, and participating in diversity-focused affinity groups. And while all of this work is valuable, it disproportionately sits on the shoulders of Black academics, and it's unremunerated and not recognized at the same level of other esteem indicators, and is not recognized labor and not sort of held at par with other esteem indicators, traditional esteem indicators in HE, sort of funding, publication numbers, et cetera, supervisions. Another key finding was the very strong theme that emerged around Black ECAs feeling that there are conversations around progression from which they are barred. Many of our survey participants noted that they feel that their colleagues are getting more information and support around opportunities that will facilitate their progression, including but not limited to opportunities for collaboration with more senior academics, funding opportunities or finding out where the money is available, inside information about promotion, and other sort of implicit support. And the reason that I wanted to highlight these two findings is because they feed directly into some of our recommendations, and two which I think are fairly straightforward to implement. The additional labor taken on predominantly by Black academics, including additional support for students, affinity groups, participation, recruitment panels, these need to be taken into workload modeling within higher education, and they need to be recognized as business critical contributions to the university. This also needs to be recognized in promotion criteria beyond a citizenship bucket, and they need to be valued alongside other indicators of esteem. The second is that the implicit conversations that are happening around promotion and progression need to be made explicit and accessible to all. And in the report, we recommend that this be done through a standardization mentoring scheme. And I think this actually follows on quite nicely from the previous panel about the importance of mentoring in academic progression. And this would ensure a more consistent playing field and access to opportunity for all ECAs. And that mentoring relationship would need to be monitored to ensure it's returning value, and mentors would need to be trained regularly on what is expected of them. Mentoring would also be considered in workload modeling and be included as part of official promotion criteria. So those who take on mentoring responsibilities would have that recognized in terms of how their workload falls, in terms of teaching allocation, et cetera, and would also feed into promotion criteria. And then finally, I wanted to highlight, and again, this feeds on from the previous conversation, is about the importance of community. And that really was not lost on us in terms of the recommendations that were made and what we heard from our participants. And it really is about building wider networks of support. And there are standalone organizations like the wonderful SBA that we all know and love that brings colleagues together. But I really would like to see this happen more frequently in higher education. Our report calls for the creation of support networks specifically for Black ECAs that span university boundaries and help colleagues share best practices across that. That might be tips of the trade, it might be about funding opportunities, it might be about job opportunities that are coming at different institutions. And these networks could be formal, they could be informal, they could be focused regionally, or they could be focused disciplinarily. But it would be about building wider connections amongst Black academics in the UK HE space and create those communities of support. This would also help address the issue around implicit conversations, as information and support could be shared with and across these networks. But I'm going to pause here, just sort of some highlights from our report there, and Josh is going to take us through some of the key data from our report.
Thank you, Baker.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm well aware I'm in the dangerous position of standing between this room and lunch, so I'll try and be quick. But I wanted to show you a few pieces of data from the report. This is Becca talked about the survey that we did. This was about 100 early career academics. And we asked them all kinds of questions. I won't be able to show all of them here, but they're all in the report, so please do have a look at that if you haven't already. And there may also well be people, it was an anonymous survey, but there may well be people in the room who contributed to that survey, and if so, we're very grateful for that. This was one of the early questions. So we wanted to know a few sort of early things about sort of academics' experiences in the workplace, what they felt their workplace was, what the challenges that they faced. And there was a lot here that was very reassuring. That's 2/3 saying that they have good relationships with their colleagues. They were very keen to emphasize that, which was fantastic. And about half saying they were satisfied. Obviously, then perhaps that means that that's half who are not satisfied, and that starts to speak to concerns. But what was really striking is those figures at the bottom there about the many that say that their pay isn't fair, and we heard earlier about pay gaps. So that came through very strongly. But also only about 1/3 saying that their workplace is sufficiently inclusive, and we'll talk in a moment about strategies to address that. Of those challenges, these were the ones that came up most often. So we gave a list, and we asked respondents to choose any. They could choose as many as they liked of the challenges that they faced. Number one being unconscious bias. So or sort of, I guess, a lack of education among their colleagues about their situation and the challenges that affect them. But also, Becca mentioned community. This came up in the written questions as well, the open text questions. That very often Black academics would be the only one in their department, or even one of a very small number in their institution. That's not conducive to a strong community. And then Becca also spoke about a lack of clarity on promotion prospects, criteria, hence the need for mentorship. We also asked about their relationship with their institutions. And I think probably the most striking thing is that top finding again. So 44% saying that they're excluded from decision-making processes that affect them, only 27% disagreeing. So most saying they're not involved, not only in the decision-making of the organization, but even those decision-making that specifically affects them, their department, their teaching, their classes, their course, their research. That we think is particularly striking, and says there's not yet a process for formally integrating Black academics into those important decisions, even in those cases where it's particularly about them. We also thought that second one was quite striking. Maybe speaks to wider cultural issues about not feeling comfortable reporting bullying or harassment. We then wanted to look, and Becca and I were very clear on this, at solutions. This is not just about raising problems, but thinking about how we can be better, make institutions better. So we asked what institutions already do, EDI training being overwhelmingly the most popular. Most institutions, I think, pretty much have to have a plan for this, so that's not particularly surprising. But whether that's meaningful is another question, and I think what came up later is actually very often it's not. It's more tokenistic. But some of those other initiatives are particularly interesting. I think it's really striking that more than 1/3 have some kind of effort to decolonize the curriculum. That's changed a lot in the last few years. We have Black staff networks like the SBA, but hopefully also inter-institutional networks. And then there's these other initiatives which are much less common. And actually, right at the bottom, we have reverse mentoring. This was something that was mentioned earlier as something with real potential, is educating senior colleagues about the issues that Black ACAs might be facing. Almost never happens. In very, very few cases is this actually happening. Likewise, we're very rarely getting targeted grants and funding opportunities. So some real opportunities for things that have a clear evidence base for working, but are not yet being widely implemented. The positive side of that is, of course, the fact that they're not being widely implemented means by starting to implement them, we can make a very big change very quickly. All right, that's all. I will say more because I think I'm speaking again later, but it'd be lovely to hear your questions for now.
We'll be able to, thank you so much. So we'll be able to take just one question. 5 minutes, okay, 2. All right, any question, please? Okay. I think you can go on. Gillian, go on.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. So decolonizing. Right. Oh, sorry. Yeah, decolonizing the curriculum. My favorite term. Not. We use these phrases which we can't escape.
and decolonisation is becoming another one of those. And I'm quite interested because EDI is it's about the weaponisation of terms and terminology. BAME has been used to hide, disguise issues, and brilliantly that this is highlighted in the report. Great report, by the way. Let me just say that. Sorry, I'm straight in there, aren't I? But we've got to be careful about use of the word like decolonisation and EDI. I think we all need to be mindful of it as Black academics and white academics. Do you decolonise something? That means withdrawing from it, and that's not what's happening. I presented on decolonising systematic reviews last year. Where was I? Abroad. Oh no, it was in London, and I was looking at decolonising systematic reviews. And the more I look at this word decolonisation, I'm part of a group called a Kotler, which uses Southern approaches to academia. I started to question the use of this word and whether or not it's starting, the script is being changed around it. So is it about decolonisation or repopulation? Because I've just been talking about voice. Is it about moving away from the subject or opening the door more widely and letting people in? So I would love your views on, because you also sort of like touched on EDI, and that it's questionable. Sometimes it's tokenistic. People don't feel like it's real. A lot of people have dropped the E from EDI as well. So I'd like to know your views on that.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. Should I answer or should I let Becca? Becca, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. I'll start, and I'm sure that Josh will have some thoughts as well. I agree. I think the term is problematic in terms of decolonization, and I think we use it in this report and in the survey because I feel that it's one that people recognize, and I think in the context that we used it, it was understood to be a term that is broadly used across the sector, regardless of whether or not it is problematic. I think and I actually think this is going to be a subject in terms of the future reports, is about, and you mentioned this, about opening the door more widely. And I think that is really important, about respecting and understanding different research foci and what constitutes valuable research and contribution to the higher education sector. And I think that's a really key element of this. And that's actually something that did emerge. And I think when we talk in future reports about progression criteria, particularly for the promotion to professor, understanding which funding opportunities get brought forward, or which sort of bids or applications go into funding bodies and which are highlighted by those funding bodies and which receive funding. I think that's actually a really important question. Now, is that decolonization? No. Is it opening the door more widely to different types of research, different explorations, and valuing them more? I think that's probably where we're going to be going with this. So yes, I agree that the term is problematic. I think we used it as a easily recognizable initiative within the sector at the minute.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's helpful. I think sometimes it is used as a synonym for EDI, or sort of a synonym for EDI, but more. Let's do EDI, but with real energy. And actually, it's not what it is. It's something quite different. So I think conceptually, in academically, we have that conceptual understanding of what decolonization is. I don't think that has yet filtered out from academia into senior leaderships and those people in implementing those initiatives. And I don't think they quite grasp yet what that is. And that's a failing of us in the policy space as well. I think that we should be doing more to understand what that is. And certainly, or we sort of know what it is, but we don't really know practically what the right thing is to implement it yet. So I think we need that conceptual clarity, and I think we need that in policy.
Thank you. Do we have more questions? Okay. No question. Okay. Okay. Okay.
So where I'm at, we did a project that I came on board with about decolonisation, the curriculum, and we found when we were doing the research, the students didn't understand the topic, and neither did the academics. So we changed it to an anti-racist practice, and it's a bit leans to the voice as well, because once we'd presented the findings, it had a big backlash with our team. So I am the only person of colour in that team. When that process was starting, there was another person who was from Europe, and we're finding at the moment we're wanting to be silenced. So now it's given me like the power where I've lost my voice, and it's like, do I want to be part of a piece of research that one is absolutely brilliantly written, but because I am that person of colour that's left because the two other academics have gone, and the academics that work in there don't understand decolonization because they're talking about, you know, why have you not included disability? Why have you not included this? And like, you're not grasping the whole process of what decolonization is. And then it's gone to the point where it's gone up to HR because people are upset about it. And then the whole process that I've found with that is like, no one's considered my feelings. It's the feelings of the white academics, and me being the only person there of colour. And the study was about basically the feelings and perceptions of students on our degree. And I was a student on that degree. So it's like nothing's changed from when I was there as a student and now coming in working there. And it just made me feel a bit uneasy. So it's about, again, voice, decolonization and terms. Where do we go from there? And what do we do?
That is a very big question, and I think you're absolutely right that it is far broader and far deeper than obviously this report goes. I think that's actually one of the impetus behind this report, is that conversations around EDI or decolonization are ongoing, but actually the dial doesn't seem to be shifting at all. And actually in conversations with universities, and this actually does come out in the report, is that, or I may have made the final edit, I can't quite remember, is that all of them say, oh, we're still at the beginning of this journey. We're still at the beginning of this journey. And you think, well, you've been on the journey for 10 years already. How are you still at the beginning? And so I guess one of the purposes behind this is to look at those actually easy to implement low cost solutions or initiatives, I should say, because they're not necessarily solutions, but to start to push the dial forward. And in a way that I think it's harder to refute in terms of the academic institution, right? If they're genuinely on this journey of EDI or whatever they want to, or DI or whatever they want to call it now, if they're really on this journey, then actually it's very hard to say we shouldn't be doing these things that aren't going to cost us any money, and it's actually not going to change how we practice, but it could have potential impact. And so I think that was one of the reasons why we wanted to do this, is to find a way to actually, to say to universities, this is that you can do it. Let's just do it. Let's stop talking about the problem, and let's actually just do it now. So that, I guess, I'm not sure, that doesn't really answer your question, but I think that was one of the purposes behind this, is to say, let's just do it. Let's stop talking about the problem and let's focus on potential solutions.
Yeah. We'll take one question. Steve?
It was only really to sort of go on the decolonization thing. So as a member of a collective at Bristol, we are going to be publishing a book which will be freely available. It's not a book on how to decolonize, it's more a book about the experiences of a wide range of academics of different ethnicities, backgrounds, on the journey of decolonization, because it's never an endpoint. It keeps going, and it's about here at Bristol, what our experiences have been, and the difficulties and the appropriation of decolonization as being something else, and how the university views it versus what's actually happening on the ground. So it should be coming out in May next year. We're just going through some revisions to it, but totally hear what you're saying. I think different people have different skin in the game, right, when it comes to this, and how they are perceived for what they're doing. And I think it always has to be seen as a resistance movement, as opposed to something that the university can claim as a trophy, if you like, that we have decolonized our curriculum, because that will never happen. Never. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure that you agree with me. This is a discussion to be heard, and we need to continue with this. But it's break time. So we'll see you 1:50.
Somebody has left the mobile phone, I think. Oh, you got it? Okay.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.